Hello, everyone. Happy 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Western, or wherever else you're joining us from. My name is Ray, and we're so excited to have you here today as part of our Visor webinar for 5 best practices for building stakeholder alignment. Now, I know that subtitle is a little bit cheesy, but it really does sometimes feel like keeping everyone on the same page can make you go absolutely insane. So, with that being said, let's get right into it as to why you should listen to me. So, who am I? Why should you care about what I have to say today, right? So my name is Ray. First of all, keeping stakeholders aligned is something that's incredibly important to me because I wear a lot of hats at my company, Visor, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. I help with our project management. I help with our product management a little bit. I am our customer success team. I help out with marketing. So keeping everybody on the same page is something that I have to deal with on a daily basis. So only half of this presentation is made up, which is mostly a joke, but it is my day to day. So a lot of it is personal experience as well. I'm also an official Atlassian creator, and I've been featured in leading project management publications. So this is something that I think a lot about, that I have a lot of knowledge on, and I'm really excited to share it with you all today. And I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. I'm going to try to make it funny. I'm going to try to make it interactive, but that's kind of subjective. So if you still find this horrible and boring, I apologize in advance, but hopefully you walk away from this feeling like you got something out of it, whether it was entertainment or knowledge. I am fine with either option. So what is in it for you? Speaking of that. So here's the good stuff, the stuff that you signed up to learn. We're going to talk about how to keep stakeholders aligned using custom views. We're going to talk about sharing high-level overviews of project plans, and then how to make sure that your data is always up to date. So let's go into practice number 1. Best practice number 1 is to give the bird's eye view. Keeping it simple is always going to be the best route. A lot of us like to get bogged down in providing too much detail because we think that's necessary, but that actually ends up leading to more miscommunication more often than not. Most people don't need the nitty gritty. So showing the highest level you can get away with just enough detail to justify your points is often enough for keeping all of your stakeholders aligned. You can eliminate confusion by keeping things very high level. And more often than not, people just want to know if things are on track. So you can show them main goals, objectives, main due dates. You can put milestones on your view to know, so people know at a glance what the most important dates are. And you can also collapse your views if you do want to add a little bit more detail or have that ready for people who want to know some of the nitty gritty things. There are a couple options that we'll go over where you can nest those details or collapse them so that they're not always visible, but they're there if you need them. All right, best practice number 2 is using color to visualize your data. Now, obviously, this colorful presentation is a great example of this, but no one wants to stare at, black text on a white page. I mean, it's snooze fest as it is, so you might as well make it pop, right? So, psychology has proven over and over again that color speaks. Sometimes a simple slide will do, but sometimes you want something that's a little bit more in your face. Our brain automatically interprets certain colors to mean certain things. So, red means stop, green means go. We're already kind of programmed to think like that. And we're more likely to pay attention to things when they're colorful. It makes information easy to scan and remember. So I actually have a little exercise for you guys. So if you have me minimized in a corner and you're just listening to me, you want to give me the next 3 seconds of your visual time. And I want you to tell me what word you remember at the end of the presentation when we're going over Q&A. So 1, 2, 3. All right, practice number 3 is to reduce noise. You want to get ahead of your updates and meeting requests by having a source of truth for your project plans, right? So, common question. Do you want a Slack channel for that? Of course you don't. There's already so much noise going on in our various communication channels, whether you're tracking tasks in Asana or tracking engineering work in Jira, and then messaging everybody in Slack. Maybe you've even got a carrier pigeon in there. Most of us are drowning in SaaS apps, and keeping information up to date in everyone's preferred software is so manual and so time consuming. I personally hate it. I hope, you guys are on the same page with me as that, but lots of SaaS apps also require a license just to view data, right? So it's really inconvenient when you're trying to keep stakeholders aligned to have to purchase an extra license just so someone can see what you're working on, or just so someone can access, a visualization of your project so that they know you're doing your job. Like, you're not going to pay for an extra license just so someone can see something, right? So keeping noise reduction in mind and trying to use applications that maybe have like a free view only kind of permission or something like that is always really helpful for keeping stakeholders aligned, because you shouldn't have to pay for something that people aren't actually using, they're just looking at. Practice number 4 is going to be keeping it need to know only. Not everything is a fire. Easily resolved means narrowly communicated. If people want more information, they can ask. Providing too much information can lead to roadblocks and too many cooks in the kitchen, right? I think we all know that phrase, that not everything's a fire, but when you're in it every single day and everyone's coming at you like, I need this, I need that, a lot of this can actually be mitigated by keeping your stakeholders aligned with high level information. So you want to present high level information to your stakeholders, but make sure that they can provide input with something that won't mess with your data, right? If they want their fingers in the pie, you can give them access to maybe comment on your project plans or your overview, or maybe they need to be able to filter to see only things that they care about, only things that pertain to their department, things like that. And then you can also, maybe send a follow-up email with the things talked about and action items so people can follow up and ask questions as needed. When you keep things really, really high level, your communication can just be seamless, right? Keep it focused to action items, bullet points of what was talked about. You don't need to recap the entire meeting in your follow-up email, but just, a little sanity check for people at the end. Like, here's what was asked of you. Here's what we talked about. Boom, done. Which brings us to our final practice for keeping stakeholders aligned, which is accurate project data. Stale data leads to confusion, so you want to make sure yours is up to date. I know we've probably all had this happen before, where we have a presentation and, oh, we didn't update the dates from that meeting, or, oh gosh, we forgot to, fill in the blank on this template that we're using. And it's a mess, because then there's confusion and people go back and forth and you don't really know what's what, right? So the easiest way to use stale data is to use manual processes, right? Like if you're keeping things in Excel, or you're keeping things in Jira and updating them in Jira, and it's so manual, it's so easy to let things fall through the cracks that way. And a lot can get lost in translation and it wastes your time. So you can do a couple things to help mitigate for this. A couple of these actually come from my personal best practices, what I do in my day-to-day life. So setting up a time block before a big presentation to update your data is a great practice. Like even if it's just 30 minutes to look at what you're presenting, whether it's slides or a Gantt chart or an Excel spreadsheet, just like a 30 to 15-minute sanity check of, okay, like, is this all up to date? Is this looking the way I want it to? Have I, organized this data in a way that makes sense? It'll make you feel more prepared as you go into presentations. And also just, it helps you to review what needs to be talked about, and also kind of circles back to that point we talked about keeping things high level. If you go in knowing what you're going to talk about because you've set time to prepare, not only where your data going to be up to date, but it's also going to be fresh in your mind so that you're able to just give those high level bullet points. Setting reminders to update data after big meetings where a lot changes, right? Whether that's a replenishment or a retrospective, or a project sync meeting or a project kickoff meeting where these dates get decided, you're going to want to maybe set some time afterwards to update that information while it's fresh in your brain before it falls through the cracks, right? Or maybe have whoever's taking notes for the meeting make you a task in whatever your task management system is to add the details that are decided at that meeting. But all of these are still kind of manual processes, right? So the third option, and the one that I would recommend, is to use a software that has a bidirectional integration so you can make changes in real time and push them back to your application. So that way you can just go through, and instead of having to make changes in Excel and then go update them in Jira and then go update them here, you can just press a button and any changes that you made in real time during that meeting or kind of over the course of the week as you've been working on this document just automatically get synced back to your SaaS app. So just to review really quickly, stakeholder alignment is a continuous effort. It's not a one and done thing. It's not like you get everyone on the same page one time and then you run off into the sunset. It's something that should be attention grabbing. You want people to pay attention to what you're saying, especially in the world of noise with all of this technology. You want to stand out because your points are important, and you want high level details only. And you want it to be easy to collaborate. The whole thing about keeping people aligned is a collaboration effort. And if it's not easy for people to collaborate, then you're going to have a rough time. Stakeholder alignment is not a one-time event. It is not boring or dull so that people forget important details. You don't want it bogged down in too much information, and you don't want it in a silo or something that happens in a vacuum. This really should be a team effort and easily collaborable. So without further ado, I want to check this out in Visor, because this is something that we feel really passionately about. We actually have huge initiatives coming up to improve our collaboration experience, to make things like this easier for you, because it's a pain point that we experience internally, and that's the problem that we're solving. So let me show you what we're working with here. All right. So as you can see, this is kind of the Visor Gantt view, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can present your data or organize it in Visor. So the one that everyone's going to recognize right off the bat is this table view, right? It's your spreadsheet view. This is really good for setting priorities. We actually just did this earlier today, where we set priorities based on the most recently imported Jira issues and then what their priority order was for a project that we're working on later today. And doing this in the Visor view was just extremely convenient, because you can reorder these things just in real time, right? Or you can even have different labels. You can pull in your Jira data, or you can even create a custom label. Let's just do that right now. So let's do a drop down and call it priority, right? Okay, so let's go high, low, and then not a priority, because we don't need medium. You're either doing it or you're not. Here you can go and I'll say, oh, this is a high priority, this is a high priority, this is a low priority, and maybe I don't care about this one at all. So that's a really good way to organize your data, because then you can come in here and filter by only your high priority items. And maybe that's what the meeting's about, right? Is we just need to talk about these need to know, need to be done things. Or you can just, talk about everything if you wanted to. We also talked about using color to make your ideas pop. So what does a high priority item kind of stand out in your mind as, right? Like, to me, that screams red, because red is an attention getter. So if we go in here, we can actually format this field to be bright red, so that when I'm, scrolling this data at a glance, I know right off the bat, like, oh, I've got to pay attention to lines 1 and 2, because my brain is drawn to that red when I'm looking at this data. So that's kind of one way that we can use the table view to help set priorities, or maybe apply some formatting that helps to catch attention. But let's talk about kind of high-level overviews. So here we have a Visor Gantt view, which we've turned into a roadmap. And we've applied some color formatting just to kind of get a high-level overview of different things here. And you can see that I have, my formatting is applied to a different priority field. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, right? So if I wanted to show formatting based on issue type, because maybe my boss is like, I need to know how many epics we have in the pipeline, I need to know how many bugs are on the board, no problem. You can totally just switch that formatting when you need to focus on that thing, and switch it back when you're back to focusing on priority. So that's a really good way to use this. Another good way to use this is, let's say, March is going to be slammed and your boss goes, let's push this project out to April. Absolutely. You can slide this right over, and not only will it update your dates in Visor, but it'll also kind of put a little warning here that you can push these dates back to Jira and sync that real-time decision that you made back to your source of truth or your integrated SaaS apps without having to update these dates twice. We'll actually generate that for you automatically. If you think it's going to take longer, shorter, you can do all of that in Visor, and then just with the press of a button, sync that data back to Jira, which is always super helpful. You see it in these little warning messages too. So then moving right along to our timeline view, a lot of times people use the timeline view to talk about priorities or resources. So obviously, if we had populated the signee field here, we would be seeing a lot more But, if maybe I notice that Mark Jones has 8 million things to his name because this is super dense and populated, I know that, everything can get allocated maybe to Jack or Sally or Teddy Barnes. Same thing with priorities. Oh, there we go. Same thing with priorities. If I'm looking in here and there's a bunch of stuff in highest, but look at major, minor, maybe I can reallocate some of this stuff, right? And really just kind of change it out and decide if high priority things are really high priority, or if maybe there's a little wiggle room to move some of this stuff down. So that's how you can use these different views to kind of communicate different messages. And then at the end of the day, this is all about collaboration. So we want to be sure that we can share these views, and there's a lot of different things that we can do here. We talked earlier about how it's such a pain to have to pay for a license just so someone can see your data. With Visor, every single viewer you invite is free. There's no cap on the amount of viewers you can invite. There's no cap on how many times they can view it. They can come in and see your data in Visor completely for free. So you don't have to buy the Majira license. You can just bring that stuff into Visor, and people will have access to it. If you want them to be able to comment or edit your workbook, then it's a really, really easy way to just upgrade your process to include those roles. But the viewer role is honestly one of the more important ones in keeping your stakeholders aligned. And that one, we don't put a cap on Visor, because we know that sharing your data and having people have access to it is wildly important for this collaboration aspect and for keeping people aligned. And that's something that's important to us. So I'm going to start answering some of the questions in the chat, just to, get us closer to the end here, because I promised you 20 minutes and I want to make sure that I honor and respect all of your time. So we do have one question that says, on average, how long would it take my team to learn how to use Visor? That's a great question. Onboarding is a friction point in so many applications. I deal with it on a daily basis with the applications I learn. And in previous roles I've had, getting everybody on the same page with an app is like pulling teeth, right? So on average, it's actually really easy to learn Visor, especially that table view. It's going to mimic a spreadsheet, right? That's something we've all worked in, even since we were kids. It's been around for years. Everyone knows how a spreadsheet works. So that's going to be, the bread and butter. There's going to be little to no onboarding time associated with the table view. As far as our Gantt and timeline views go, and we're very shortly coming out with a board view, so stay tuned for that. It's 3 steps. It's 3 steps to configure your Gantt view or your timeline view or your board view in the way you want it. So, I don't know, how long does it take your team to complete 3 steps, right? That might be a little suggestive, and I'm joking, but it really is seamless. And we've got a absolutely expansive knowledge base to help you out with anything you might need. We do put a lot of effort and care into making sure all of your answers are there. So onboarding time should be minimal. And yes, we had a question that if I make views in Visor, how much do I have to pay to get them using Visor? Viewing, once again, completely free. And that's what we have there today is, you don't have to pay anything to get people to view your data. It's really nice. And then I also wanted to talk about some new features we have coming up that, perfect timing. A feature on Visor's roadmap that I believe will significantly enhance the ability of teams to align. We actually have one coming up that I'm super excited about. I wanted to share our roadmap, which is always public. So you can come check this out anytime to see what we've launched, what we're currently working on in engineering, what we're researching on the product side, and then things that we have planned. The one that I'm really excited about when it comes to keeping stakeholders aligned is going to be sharing specific views with specific users, right? So that means I can create a Visor workbook that's got 7 views, one for each department, and I can share this one with my head of marketing. I can share this one with my VP of product. I can share this one with the sales team. But for me, all of that data will live in one place. So that's something coming down the pipeline that I'm incredibly excited about. That's really going to make keeping stakeholders aligned a lot easier. We had another one. Do viewers have access to all three views, table, Gantt, and timeline? Yes, absolutely. Right now, any view you create, a viewer will be able to see. We do not gate view types based on permission or role. That being said, when sharing specific views does come out, you'll be able to pick and choose whether you want them to see all three. But as it exists today, viewers have access to all three views. I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes for any other questions in the chat. And I'll look at our beautiful roadmap while I wait. Feel like I need some Jeopardy music here. All right. Well, if that's all you guys have for me today, then thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to us via that feedback button in the application, that chat button. You can ping us on LinkedIn. You can send us an email at support@visor.us. I hope you found this valuable. I hope this did not waste your time. And if nothing else, I hope you were entertained. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Thursday, happy 222, and have a great rest of your day.